So guys, want to crack your Selenium WebDriver interview and land your dream job in test automation? Then you're in the right place. So in this video, we are revealing the top 30 most frequently asked Selenium and Java interview question and answers, the ones hiring managers actually care about. From handling complex dynamic elements to mastering Selenium 4's new features and exploring the latest trends shaping automation testing, we have covered it all. So whether you're just starting out or leveling up for senior roles, these questions will give you the edge. So stick around till the end for exclusive tips and real-world answers that can set you apart in interviews. But before we begin, please like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to hit the bell icon to stay updated on the latest tech content from Edureka's YouTube channel. Also, check out Edureka's Selenium training course, which provides 36 plus hours of instructor-led sessions covering Selenium WebDriver, 𝐑𝐨𝐺𝐸, Maven, Jenkins, and automation frameworks. With real-world projects, hands-on assignments, and expert-led guidance, it equips learners with practical automation testing skills. This program prepares professionals with roles like automation tester, QA engineer, and test analyst, aligning with industry standards. So check out the course link given in the description box below. So let's get started with beginner level Selenium interview questions. So first, let us understand what actually is Selenium. Well, Selenium is an open source suite of tools and libraries that automates the testing of website and web applications. Its versatility in testing across different environments is attributed to its cross-browser, cross-language, and cross-platform capabilities. Selenium seamlessly integrates with existing development workflows and supports programming languages such as Java, JavaScript, C#, PHP, Python, and Ruby. Now let's move on to our second question, which is, what are different components of the Selenium? So Selenium is not just a single tool or a utility. Rather, it's a bundle of multiple test tools referred to as a suite. Each of the tools is designed to meet specific criteria for testing and testing environments. The suite package contains the following set of tools. First, we have Selenium IDE, which stands for Integrated Development Environment, which is open source record and playback test automation for the web. This is distributed as a plugin to Firefox and Chrome. And next we have Selenium RC, which stands for Remote Control. Selenium RC is a server that allows a user to build test scripts in a desired programming language. It also enables test scripts to be performed across a wide spectrum of browsers. And then we have Selenium WebDriver, where Selenium WebDriver is an entirely different tool with different advantages over Selenium RC. So WebDriver interacts directly with the web browser and makes use of its native compatibility to automate. And then we have Selenium Grid, where Selenium Grid is used to distribute the test execution simultaneously on multiple platforms and environments. Alright, so now let us move on to our third question, which is, what are the advantages of Selenium in the automation testing world? Selenium is a free open source platform and supports a wide array of users and support communities. So its compatibility across systems, making it friendly for Windows, Linux, and Mac users. It supports Java, Python, Perl, PHP, C# and Ruby programming languages. Since Selenium is compatible with cross-browser testing, it works on almost all common browsers, including Chrome, Firefox, Edge, Internet Explorer, and Safari. And another benefit is that Selenium Grid allows for parallel execution. Now let us move on to our next question, which is, what is WebDriver? WebDriver is a simple and concise programming interface. It is an object-oriented and lightweight API. It drives the browser through interface type reference variables. So now let us move on to our next question, which is, what is Selenium 4? Selenium 4 is the latest version of Selenium WebDriver, and which will be fully standardized with W3C. Since most browsers such as Chrome, Safari, Firefox, Internet Explorer, and Edge follow W3C standardization, browser drivers will interact with Selenium WebDriver in W3C standard protocol. Next, what are some noteworthy Selenium 4 features? So here are the Selenium features. First on the list, we have Selenium Grid. The hubs and nodes are smooth to set up and handle now. So once a Selenium server is started, the grid will act both as a hub and node. The next feature is taking screenshots at the element level section level and page level is possible now. Next is the support for the Chromium driver for the Microsoft Edge browser. And then the support of relative locators. Moving on to next question, which is what is the difference between get and navigate to methods. For example, get URL loads a page and waits until it's fully loaded, whereas navigate to URL just navigates without waiting. So it's simple, right? Alright, now moving on to next question, which is what are the different waits in Selenium WebDriver? So basically there are three types of waits in WebDriver. First we have implicit waits. This is a wait timeout that applies to an instance on a WebDriver, and it implies that all the actions of this instance are timeout only after waiting for some time. And next we have the explicit waits. So this is an exclusive timeout method that works by adding code to delay the execution until a specific condition arises. It is more customizable that we can set it up to wait for any suitable situation. Usually we use a few of the pre-built expected conditions to wait for elements to become clickable, visible and invisible, etc. Then we have another wait, which is fluent wait. This defines the maximum amount of time to wait for a particular condition and frequency to test the condition before throwing an exception to element not visible exception. Alright, now let us move on to our next question, that is, what is the difference between WebDriver find element versus web element find element? And the difference is that, so the WebDriver find element method, this finds the element from the entire page using the given selector. Whereas the web element find element method, so in this method, first this generates the web element and then the child elements of the given element are searched based on the given selector. Now, what are all the design patterns in Selenium frameworks? So the design patterns in Selenium frameworks are the page object model, which is POM pattern, and then we have factory pattern, and then we have facade pattern and strategy pattern. Alright, now let us move on to intermediate level Selenium interview questions. And the question is, what are all the locators that support Selenium? And the locators are name, same as ID although it is not unique, and then CSS selector works on element tags and attributes, and then we have XPath searches elements in the DOM, which is reliable but slow, and then we have class name, which uses the class name attribute, and the tag name uses HTML tags to locate web elements, and then we have link text, which uses anchor text to locate web elements, and finally partial link text, which uses partial link text to find web elements. And then moving on to next question, what are the differences between XPath and CSS selectors? So let us understand the differences between them. So here in terms of speed, we can say that XPath is slower due to the complex traversal, whereas CSS selector, which is faster and optimized for browsers. And then in terms of text search, so the XPath supports the text function, contains function and other text functions, whereas CSS selector cannot locate elements by text. And then in terms of index-based selection, the XPath supports indexing tag function, index function, whereas CSS selector does not support direct indexing. And then in terms of traversal direction, using XPath we can move both forward and backward in the DOM, whereas CSS selector only moves forward, such as a parent to child. And now moving on to our next question, what is the difference between page object model and page factory? Now let us understand the differences between page object model and page factory. Well, the page object model, which is POM, is a Selenium design pattern. It's seen as a repository where you can store all the web elements. POM is popular because it's easy to manage, offers code reusability, and eliminates duplication of code. So if UI changes in the future, then we can update web elements to page classes in POM or object repository accordingly. Whereas page factory in Selenium WebDriver is an integrated concept or API. It follows the same principle of keeping repository objects or page classes separate from test classes. Now let us understand the difference between driver close and driver quit. So the driver close closes the current browser window, whereas driver quit closes all the browser windows and ends the session. It's simple, right? And now moving on to next question, which is, what are the advantages of using page object model? So the advantages are, it enhances code reusability and maintainability. And the next advantage is that it reduces the code duplication, and then it also improves the readability and scalability. Now moving ahead with our next question, can CAPTCHA be automated? And the answer is no, because Selenium cannot automate CAPTCHA. Well, the whole concept of CAPTCHA is to ensure that the bots and automated programs don't access sensitive information, which is why Selenium cannot automate it. So the automation test engineer has to manually type the CAPTCHA, while other fields can be filled automatically. The next question is, what are the exceptions in Selenium WebDriver? So, Selenium WebDriver has several exceptions that help identify and handle errors during test execution. And some of the most common ones include no such element exception, which is raised when an element is not found in the DOM. The next exception is no such frame exception. It throws when the specified frame is not found. The next exception is no such window exception. It occurs when switching to a window that doesn't exist. The next exception is no alert present exception. It is raised when trying to interact with an alert that isn't present. And then we have element not visible exception. This throws when an element exists in the DOM but it is not visible. And the next exception is element not interactable exception. It happens when an element is not in a state to be interacted with. Example, disabled or hidden. Next, timeout exception. It is raised when an operation exceeds the predefined wait time. State element reference exception. This occurs when an element is no longer attached to the DOM, often due to the page refresh. And then we have another exception, which is invalid selector exception. This throws when an invalid XPath or CSS selector is used. And finally, the last exception that we are going to discuss is session not created exception. And this is raised when the WebDriver session cannot be created, often due to browser compatibility issues. Alright, I hope this exception in Selenium WebDriver is clear now. So moving on to next question, that is, how should one handle Windows-based alert or pop-ups in Selenium? So Selenium only supports web applications and does not provide a way to automate Windows-based application. However, the following approach can help. So use the Java-based robot class utility to simulate keyboard and mouse actions. Next, the key press and key release methods simulate the user pressing and releasing a specific key on a keyboard. Alright, now let us understand why are test-ng annotations frequently used with Selenium. Well, test-ng annotations prioritize the calling of the test methods over others. So here are the ones to use with Selenium. So first we have before suit. This is to run before all tests. And then after suits to run only once after all tests. And then before class to run only once before the first test method. We also have after class. This is to run only once after all the test methods of the current class finished execution. We also have before test. This is to run before any test method inside the test tag. And finally, after test, to run after any test method inside the test tag. Hope that's clear. Now moving on to next question. What is a framework and what are the different types of frameworks available? A framework is a charter of rules and best practices for the systematic resolution of a problem. So there are different kinds of automation frameworks such as data-driven testing framework, keyword-driven testing framework, hybrid testing framework, and behavioral-driven framework. Now let us explore advanced level Selenium interview questions. And the question is, what is Selenium Grid and how does it help in parallel execution? So, Selenium Grid is a tool that enables parallel execution of test cases across multiple browsers, operating systems, and machines. It follows a hub node architecture where the hub controls test execution and nodes run tests on different environments. And the key benefits are faster execution by running tests in parallel, cross-browser and cross-platform testing for better coverage, and efficient resource utilization by distributing tests across multiple machines. So the Selenium Grid helps scale automation testing, making it ideal for large test suites. Alright, And the next question is, what is a soft assertion and a hard assertion in Selenium? So first let us understand what is soft assertion. A soft assert will not throw an exception when an assert fails and it will continue with the next step. Whereas the hard assert throws an assert exception immediately when an assert statement fails and test suite continues with next test. Moving on to next question, what are static blocks or static initializer in Java? So, a static blocks are used to initialize static variables in a class and they execute once when the class is loaded before the constructor runs. The key features include initializes static fields, runs automatically when the class loads, and it executes before any object creation. The next question is, how should you use the keywords this and super in Java? So here first let us understand this keyword. So this keyword can only be used for the constructor. So it initializes class level variables in the constructor using local variables. And we can use more than one this keyword within the constructor at a time. We use super keyword to call parent class constructor. So we can only have one super keyword declared within the constructor at a time. You should always write super keyword in a child class constructor. Hope that's clear now. Moving on to next question, which is, why is the main method is public, static and a void in Java? So let's understand. Public is an access specifier which can be used outside the class. So when the main method is declared public, it means it can be used outside the class. Next, static. So to call a method, we require an object. Sometimes it may be required to call a method without the help of an object. So then we declare the method as in static, where JVM calls the main method without creating an object by declaring the keyword static. Whereas void, the void return type is used when a method does not return any value. So if main method does not return any value, then main is declared as void. And the next question is, what is an exception in Java? So in Java, exception is an object. Exceptions are created when an abnormal situation is raised in the program. So exceptions can be created by JVM or by our application code. So all exception classes are defined in java.line. In other words, we can say this as a runtime error. Moving on to our next Java question, which is, what are the differences between the interface and abstract class? So first let us discuss about interface. So interface contains only abstract methods and access specifiers for methods in interface must be public and defined variables must be public, static and final, and then multiple inheritance in Java is implemented using interface. Now let us discuss about the abstract class. So an abstract class can contain abstract methods, concrete methods or both. And except with private variables, we can have any access specifier for methods in abstract class. And we cannot achieve multiple inheritance using abstract class. And to implement an interface, we use implements keyword. I hope that's clear now. Now let us move on to next question, which is, so have you ever faced issues with elements not being interactable? How did you resolve it? Yes, this usually happens due to the timing issues and hidden elements or overlays. So I resolved it by using explicit wait like WebDriver wait to ensure the element is ready for interaction. So if overlays were present, I used JavaScript executor to click elements. Hope that's clear now. And the next question is, what challenges have you encountered with dynamic elements and how did you handle them? So the dynamic elements often have changing attributes like IDs. I handle them using XPaths with contains or start with CSS selector or explicit waits to ensure elements are loaded before interaction. Now moving on to our next question, that is, have you dealt with Flaky tests in Selenium and what strategies did you use to stabilize them? And the answer is yes. Flaky tests often occur due to timing issues or unstable locators. So I stabilized them by using explicit waits instead of implicit waits, improving element locators and ensuring test data consistency. Alright, so mastering Selenium interview questions gives you a strong edge in automation testing, from handling dynamic elements to integrating with CI/CD pipelines, and a solid understanding of Selenium ensures you're job ready. So keep practicing, stay updated and refine your problem solving skills to master your next interview. And with this, we have come to an end to this video on Selenium and Java interview question and answers. So if you enjoyed listening to this video, please be kind enough to like it, and you can comment on any of your doubts and queries. We will reply to them at the earliest. And do look up for more videos and playlists and subscribe to Edureka's YouTube channel to learn more. Thank you for watching and happy learning.